"Daddy, can I bring a warm soup to that woman?" What this billionaire dad does is unbelievable. The cold cut through Chicago like a razor. Nathan Carter closed the kitchen window and sighed, watching the heavy snowflakes fall outside. The forecast was for a storm all night, and he knew that meant even more people needing help on the streets. "Daddy, are you really going out in this horrible weather?" Nathan turned around. Chloe was standing in the kitchen doorway, hugging her favorite teddy bear, a brown stuffed animal she called Mr. Teddy. At 5 years old, she had blonde hair that shone like pure gold and blue eyes that seemed to hold all the secrets of the universe. "I have to, Princess. It's precisely because of this weather that I need to go out." "Why?" She tilted her little head, curious. Nathan crouched down to her level. It was amazing how Chloe always asked the right questions, even without knowing it. "Because there are people out there who don't have a warm place like ours to protect themselves from the cold." "Imagine if it were us out there, freezing?" Chloe frowned, thoughtful. Nathan loved how she processed information. She wasn't just any child. There was something very special in the way she saw the world around her. "Can I go with you?" The question caught Nathan completely off guard. He hesitated, looking out the window once more. The area where he made the deliveries wasn't exactly dangerous, but it was no place for a 5-year-old girl on a freezing night like this. "I don't know, Chloe. It's very late and very cold out there." "Please." She made that irresistible face that always melted his heart. "I promise I'll stick right by you the whole time." "I really promise." Nathan thought for a few seconds. Maybe it would be good for her to see how other people lived. Chloe had absolutely everything: a huge mansion, expensive toys, beautiful clothes, delicious food whenever she wanted. But sometimes he wondered if she truly understood how lucky she was. "All right then. But you're going to turn into a little marshmallow with all the clothes I'm going to put on you." "Really?" Her eyes sparkled with pure joy. "Really? Today, we're a team of superheroes for good." 20 minutes later, Chloe looked like a little doll wrapped in layers and layers of warm clothes. Nathan carried the huge thermal bags filled with steaming soups to the car. The project had started 2 years ago, right after he sold his tech company and decided to do something that truly mattered. Every Friday, he and a few friends would get together to prepare hot food and take it to the city streets. "How many soups fit in there, Daddy?" "About 60, maybe 70 today." "Wow, are there that many people who don't have food?" Nathan started the engine and waited for it to warm up, his heart aching a little. "Yes, there are, unfortunately, a lot of people. That's very sad." "It is very sad, Princess, but that's why we're here, right? To help." The drive downtown took almost an hour because of the non-stop snow. Chloe spent the entire trip glued to the window, watching everything with those curious eyes. As they got closer to their destination, the houses became smaller and older. The streetlights were dim, and many windows were covered with wooden boards. "Is this where they live?" Chloe asked softly, her voice full of astonishment. "Some live in shelters nearby. Others sleep on the street, under awnings, or wherever they can find a little protection." "On the street, but it's freezing." "I know, Princess. That's why we're here." Nathan parked near the central square. 2 other cars were already there. Marcus and Elena, his faithful partners in the project, had arrived first and were already taking things out of their cars. They greeted each other quickly and started setting up the makeshift tables. "And who is this beautiful princess?" Eleanor smiled at Chloe, who hid a little behind her father's legs. "Did you come to help us today?" "This is my daughter, Chloe. Chloe, this is Elena." "Hi." Chloe waved shyly, still half hidden. "Are you going to hand out soups with us?" Eleanor asked warmly. Chloe looked at her father, who nodded and smiled encouragingly. "I am." "That's great. I really need a special assistant today." In a few minutes, a line began to form in the square. People of all ages approached slowly, some with old but tidy clothes, others clearly in a much more difficult situation. Nathan kept an eye on Chloe the whole time. She was quiet but paying attention to every detail. "Good evening, Mrs. Davis." Nathan handed a hot soup to an elderly woman he knew from other Fridays. "How are you feeling today?" "Better now, dear. God bless you and your family." Daddy, can I hand one out too? Chloe pulled on his coat sleeve, eager. Of course, come here. Nathan lifted her into his arms so she could reach the table. The next in line was a young man, no more than 20 years old, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Here's your soup. Chloe handed him the cup very carefully. Tias, I hope you really like it. The young man smiled. It was the first real smile Nathan had seen on him in all the weeks he'd been coming there. Thank you, little one. I'm sure I'll love it. Be careful not to burn your tongue, Chloe added, concerned. The line kept moving. Chloe loosened up as she handed out the soups, always with a kind phrase. This will warm you up. Drink it slowly. I hope you really enjoy it. Nathan felt his chest swell with pride with each passing minute. His little girl had a giant heart. An elderly woman limped towards them, clearly having trouble walking. Do you want me to help you sit down? Chloe asked, concerned. What a sweet girl, the woman smiled. Thank you, dear. Nathan helped the woman settle onto a nearby bench before handing her the soup. Chloe stayed by her side for a few minutes, talking about childish things, until others needed to be served. It was almost at the end of the distribution that Chloe stopped talking completely. Nathan followed her gaze and saw a woman sitting alone on a more distant bench, away from the others' movement. She had blonde hair tied in a messy ponytail and wore a coat that was too thin for the terrible cold. Even from a distance, you could see she was shivering badly. Daddy! Chloe tugged his sleeve insistently. She's cold? Nathan looked more closely where she was pointing. The woman was indeed shivering a lot, huddled on the bench as if trying to shield herself from the wind. Can I give her some hot soup? Nathan watched the woman on the bench carefully. She wasn't in line. She hadn't approached like the others. Maybe she was ashamed, or maybe she just didn't want to mix with the other people. Of course you can, Princess. How about we go together? They approached slowly, without rushing. The woman looked up when she saw them coming, and Nathan felt a very strange tightness in his chest. There was something extremely familiar about her face, but he couldn't quite place what it was. So hi. Chloe held the cup with her two small hands, careful not to spill. I brought you some nice warm soup. The woman looked at Chloe, then at Nathan, and back to Chloe. Her blue eyes filled with tears instantly. For me? Uh-huh. It's really warm. It'll warm you all up inside. The woman extended her trembling hands and took the soup very carefully. When her fingers touched Chloe's for a second, Nathan saw tears start to roll down her face. Thank you. Her voice came out completely choked. Thank you so much. You're welcome. What's your name? The woman took a moment to be able to answer. Sophie, I'm Sophie. What a pretty name. I'm Chloe. What? And this is my daddy, Nathan. Sophie looked at Nathan directly for the first time. He saw clear recognition in her eyes. She definitely knew who he was, but for some reason, she said absolutely nothing about it. A pleasure to meet you, Sophie. Nathan extended his hand, trying to understand what was happening. Sophie shook it quickly, looking away immediately after. So the pleasure is all mine. Do you have somewhere to sleep tonight? Chloe asked with the raw, direct honesty of children. Sophie wiped her tears with the back of her hand, trying to compose herself. I do, dear. Don't worry. You don't need to worry about me. Take care of yourself in the cold, okay? Promise. I promise. Thanks again for the soup. You are angels. Nathan felt he should say something, but he had no idea what. There was something about that woman that left him deeply unsettled, not in a bad way, but as if he were forgetting something very, very important. If you need anything, he started, not knowing how to finish. I'm fine, thank you. Sophie hurried to reply. You've already done more than enough, much more. They said goodbye and returned to the table to finish the distribution. Nathan glanced back once and saw Sophie watching Chloe with an expression he couldn't understand at all. When she noticed he was looking, she turned her face away immediately. The rest of the distribution flew by, but Nathan couldn't stop thinking about Sophie. Who was she exactly? Why had she recognized him so clearly? And most importantly, why did she look at Chloe in such an intense and strange way? Daddy, are you okay? Chloe tugged his sleeve as they put the last things in the car. I'm fine, Princess. Why? You got very quiet after we talked to Sophie. It seems like you're thinking about something important. Nathan smiled, impressed once again. His daughter really didn't miss a thing. Just thinking about some things. Let's go home. You must be hungry. I am, and very sleepy too. The ride back was much quieter than the ride there. Chloe was visibly tired, but Nathan could see by the passing lights that she was awake, thinking about everything she had seen. Daddy? Yes, Princess. Helping was really good. It was, wasn't it? You were amazing today. But it was also sad. Nathan turned down the radio volume to hear better. Why was it sad? Chloe took a long time to answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was small and very serious. We have warm beds and yummy food, and they don't. The words hit Nathan like a punch straight to the gut. His 5-year-old daughter had managed to summarize all the brutal injustice of the world in one simple sentence. He felt his eyes burn. It's true, Princess. It's very sad indeed. Why do some people have everything and some people have nothing? Nathan stopped at the red light and turned completely towards her. How do you explain the terrible complexity of life to a 5-year-old? Sometimes life isn't fair, Chloe. Some people are born lucky, others aren't. Some make good choices, others make bad choices. And sometimes very bad things happen to very good people. Like Sophie. She seemed very sad. Sadder than the other people. Nathan thought of Sophie's eyes, of the intense way she looked at Chloe. She did seem that way. Can we go back to see her another day? I want to know if she's okay. If you want to, we can go back. The light turned green and they continued on their way home. Nathan looked in the rearview mirror and saw Chloe leaning against the window, watching the city pass with that pensive look. His daughter had an absolutely enormous heart and a sensitivity that impressed him every day. When they got home, Grace, the nanny, was waiting at the door with a steaming hot chocolate. So, how was the big adventure? She asked kindly, helping Chloe take off all the layers of clothes. It was great, Grace. Chloe excitedly told her about the soups, the people she met, and especially about Sophie. She was all alone, you know? Alone in the terrible cold, shivering a lot. It's a good thing you brought her hot food then. Yeah, but I wanted to bring her home too. She looked like she needed a hug. Nathan smiled with a mixture of pride and sadness. If it were up to Chloe, she would bring everyone from the street to live with them in the mansion. After Chloe had her bath and went to sleep, Nathan was alone in the living room, looking out the huge window. The snow had finally stopped, but the cold was still biting. He thought of all the people who would spend the night sleeping outside, trying to keep warm however they could. But mostly, he thought of Sophie. There was something in those blue eyes that deeply troubled him. The way she looked at Chloe. It was as if... Nathan shook his head hard. He was imagining things. It was probably just a woman in a very difficult situation who was moved by the natural kindness of a child. Still, he couldn't get her image out of his head. Outside, the city slept peacefully. But Nathan knew that many people would be awake all night, trying to protect themselves from the cold and loneliness. And somewhere in the city, Sophie was also thinking of them. Nathan had no idea yet, but that night had planted a seed that would change their lives forever. Some coincidences are simply not coincidences. They are destiny carefully arranging the pieces on the board of life. And Chloe, with all her innocent child's wisdom, had already seen the deep sadness in Sophie's eyes that he was still trying to understand. We have warm beds and yummy food. And they don't. The words echoed in Nathan's mind until he finally managed to fall asleep, unaware that on the other side of the city, Sophie was looking at the stars through a shelter window and whispering a silent prayer of gratitude for having seen her daughter once more. The night was cold and cruel, but something very warm had begun to stir in the hearts of the three people who met in that snow-covered square. Destiny had taken its first delicate step. Now it was only a matter of time until the whole truth finally came to light, and when it did, nothing would ever be the same for any of the three. 2 days had passed since the night of the soup delivery. Nathan was in his office reviewing some documents when he heard the doorbell. He looked at the clock, almost 11 in the morning on a Sunday. He wasn't expecting visitors. "I'll get it, Mr. Carter," shouted Grace from downstairs. Nathan turned his attention back to the papers until a soft knock sounded on his door. "Mr. Carter?" Grace sounded strangely hesitant. "There's a young woman at the door who wants to speak with you. She says it's important." "Who is it?" "I'm not sure. I've never seen her before. She seems nervous." Nathan frowned, intrigued. "I'm coming down." When he reached the entrance hall, Nathan stopped abruptly. Standing near the door was Sophie, the same woman Chloe had offered soup to 2 days ago. She was clean, with her blonde hair tied in a simple bun, but she wore visibly worn-out clothes, her blue eyes fixed on him with a mixture of fear and determination. "Sophie?" Nathan approached cautiously. "What are you doing here?" "How did you find my house?" Sophie wrung her hands, twisting her fingers. "Your name is well known, Carter Tech. It wasn't hard." "I see. Do you need help?" Nathan asked, not sure how to handle the situation. Sophie swallowed hard. "Can I speak with you in private, please?" Grace looked at Nathan, who nodded slightly. "All right. Let's go to the office." Nathan led Sophie through the house, noticing how she looked at everything with a strange, almost painful intensity. In the office, he offered her a chair, which she accepted, sitting on the edge as if ready to flee at any moment. "Is Chloe home?" Sophie asked suddenly. The question caught Nathan off guard. "She's at a friend's house. She'll be back after lunch." He narrowed his eyes. "Why do you ask about my daughter?" Sophie took a deep breath, as if gathering all her strength. "I didn't come here to ask for anything," she began, her voice trembling. "Not money, not shelter, nothing like that. I just need to tell you something." Nathan sat down, feeling a strange tightness in his chest. Something about this conversation made him deeply uneasy. "I'm listening." Sophie looked directly into his eyes. "I'm Chloe's mother." Her voice came out low, but firm. "I left her here, in a basket, 5 years ago. I just wanted to see how she's doing, even if it was just once." Time seemed to freeze. Nathan felt as if the floor had disappeared from under his feet. A strange ringing filled his ears as her words echoed in his mind. "What?" was all he could manage to say. "I know it sounds crazy," Sophie continued, the words now tumbling out quickly, as if she were afraid of losing her courage. "But it's true. It was on a winter night like Friday. I left a letter with her. A letter explaining that I couldn't take care of her, that I wanted her to have a better chance." Nathan's mind instantly traveled back to that night, 5 years ago. He was working late when he heard a faint cry at the front door. He opened it and found a basket with a tiny baby wrapped in blankets. A newborn girl, with a golden fuzz on her head and blue eyes that looked at him with an intensity that captured him immediately. And yes, there was a letter. A handwritten letter that said only, "Please, give her what I can never offer. She deserves more than to be born into poverty." "How can I be sure you're telling the truth?" Nathan asked, his voice hoarse with restrained emotion. Sophie pulled something from her pocket, a small, worn photo protected by plastic. It was her visibly younger, holding a newborn baby. "This is the only picture I have of her. Taken at the hospital, a few hours after she was born." She turned the photo over. On the back, a handwritten date, exactly 5 years and 3 months ago. Nathan took the photo with trembling hands. There was no denying it. The baby was Chloe. Those same intense blue eyes, the delicate features he knew so well. He looked at Sophie more closely. The same blonde hair, the same face shape and the same gaze. How had he not noticed before? The resemblance was obvious now. "Why now?" he finally asked, handing the photo back. "Why after 5 years?" Sophie put the photo away carefully, as if it were a treasure. "I never intended to show up. I swear I was living in Seattle, trying to rebuild my life. I came back to Chicago 3 months ago when I lost my job." She took a deep breath. "When I saw you two in that square, it wasn't planned. It was as if fate played a cruel trick on me, or maybe a second chance to see her. I don't know." "And what do you want now?" Nathan's voice came out harsher than he intended. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing." Sophie shook her head firmly. "I have no right to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know. and I wanted to thank you for taking such good care of her. She seems happy, healthy. That's all I ever wanted for her." Nathan stood up abruptly and walked to the window. Outside, the snow-covered garden looked incredibly peaceful, in total contrast to the storm in his heart. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" he asked without turning around. "Showing up like this, out of nowhere, after 5 years." "I know I have no right." "She's my daughter," Nathan interrupted, turning to face Sophie. "My daughter in every way that matters. I was the one who rocked her to sleep every night when she had colic. I was the one who taught her to walk, to talk, to read. I was the one who was by her side through every fever, every nightmare, every achievement." Silent tears began to stream down Sophie's face. "I know, and I'm eternally grateful for that." "Then why come back? Why now?" "Because since I saw her in that square, I can't sleep right. I can't breathe right." Sophie wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "I just needed to tell you the truth. You deserved to know." Nathan felt a mixture of anger, fear, and confusion. Part of him wanted to throw this woman out of his house and never see her again. Another part understood the desperate gesture of a mother who gave up her own child for love. "You're not taking her away." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. "I would never do that." Sophie shook her head vehemently. "I'm in no position to care for her. I never was. And she already has a father who loves her more than anything." Nathan sat down again, feeling suddenly exhausted. Memories of the last 5 years flashed through his mind like a high-speed film. The faint cry on that winter night, the immediate decision to keep the baby, the desperate search for clues about the mother, a search he eventually abandoned, accepting that Chloe was his daughter now. "Do you know what happened after I found Chloe?" he asked after a long silence. Sophie shook her head. "I spent the entire night sitting beside the makeshift crib, just looking at her. I couldn't believe someone had abandoned such a perfect creature." Nathan smiled faintly at the memory. "The next day, I hired the best lawyers to start the adoption process. I used every resource I had to make it official as quickly as possible." He stared at Sophie. "I looked for you, not to give Chloe back, but to understand, to make sure she hadn't been stolen or something like that. I would never do that to my own baby. I know that now." Nathan took a deep breath. "When I didn't find any clues, I decided it was for the best. Chloe was my daughter now. She is my daughter. And she will continue to be," Sophie assured him. "I'm not here to change that." A heavy silence fell over the room. Nathan tried to process all the information, all the emotions overwhelming him. "Why my doorstep?" he finally asked. "Of all the houses in Chicago, why mine?" Sophie lowered her eyes. "I did some research. I knew who you were, a successful businessman, single, no children. I thought you could give her everything I never could, and it seems I was right." She looked around at the luxurious office. "She has a life I couldn't have imagined for her, even in my wildest dreams." The doorbell rang again, making them both jump. Nathan looked at the clock. Noon. Probably Chloe returning from her friend's house. "It's her," he said, feeling a sudden panic. "You need to leave now." Sophie stood up quickly. "Yes, of course. I don't want to cause any trouble." "Mr. Carter," Grace's voice came from the other side of the door. "Chloe is here." "I'm coming, Grace." "Ask her to wait for me in the TV room." "Yes, sir." Nathan turned to Sophie, who seemed torn between the desperate desire to see Chloe one more time and the fear of causing the girl harm. "I'll take you out the back," he said. "Chloe can't see you here, not like this, not now." Sophie nodded, visibly disappointed but understanding. "I understand." As he guided her through the mansion's corridors, careful to avoid any encounters, Nathan tried to organize his thoughts. How should he handle this situation? What should he tell Chloe? Should he hide the truth from her forever? When they reached the back door, Sophie turned to him one last time. "Thank you for everything you've done for her." "I can never thank you enough." Nathan nodded stiffly. "Do you have a place to stay? Are you okay?" "I'm at a women's shelter downtown. It's temporary, but it's safe." She hesitated. "Can I give you my phone number in case you need to talk to me for any reason?" Nathan thought for a moment. then took his business card from his pocket and handed it to her. "See, call me on Monday. We need to talk more about this, away from here." Sophie took the card as if it was something precious. "I'll call." After she left, Nathan stood still for a few minutes, trying to regain his composure. His life had just been turned upside down, and he needed to pretend that everything was fine for his daughter. His daughter. She would always be his daughter, regardless of who had brought her into the world. When he entered the TV room, Chloe was watching her favorite cartoon. Her blonde hair shone in the light, and her blue eyes lit up when she saw him. "Daddy!" She ran and jumped into his arms. "Guess what?" "What?" "Lily has a new kitten and he's so tiny." Nathan hugged her tightly, feeling a lump in his throat. "That's great, princess. Tell me more about this kitten." As Chloe chatted excitedly, Nathan realized he needed to talk to someone about what had just happened. When the girl finally turned her attention back to the cartoon, he called Grace into the kitchen. "Simon, I need to talk to you," he said in a low voice. "It's important." Grace, who had worked with the family for 4.5 years, nodded with concern. "What happened? Does it have to do with that young woman?" "Yes? Let's go to the office." After explaining the whole situation, Nathan felt exhausted. Grace listened attentively, without interrupting, her eyes expressing first surprise, then understanding. "What do I do now, Grace?" Nathan asked, running his hands through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "How do I tell Chloe this? Should I even tell her?" Grace sighed thoughtfully. "Mr. Carter, you've given this girl everything. Love, security, education, everything." She paused. "But she has the right to know her story. Every child does." "I'm afraid of losing her," Nathan admitted, his voice almost a whisper. "What if she wants to be with her biological mother? What if she hates me for not telling her sooner? Chloe loves you more than anything in the world. That will never change." Grace gently placed a hand on his arm. "But hiding the truth from her is denying an important part of her identity. Sooner or later, she'll find out, and it would be better if she heard it from you, wouldn't it?" Nathan reflected on the nanny's words. Deep down, he knew she was right. Chloe had the right to know where she came from, even if it meant sharing her love with someone else. "I don't know if I have the strength for this, Grace." "You do. You're the strongest man I know, and you'll do what's best for Chloe, as you always have." That night, after putting Chloe to bed, Nathan spent a long time watching his sleeping daughter. How could he explain to a 5-year-old that the woman she met in the square, the one she herself wanted to help, was actually her biological mother? He thought about the phone call he would receive from Sophie on Monday. What would he say to her? How would they deal with this impossible situation? One thing he knew for sure: he would do anything to protect Chloe, to ensure she remained happy and safe, even if it meant making space in his life for the woman who, years ago, left a baby on his doorstep on a winter night. Fate had found a way to bring their paths together again, and now none of them could run from the truth any longer. 3 days after the revelation, Nathan still couldn't sleep properly. The thought of telling Chloe the truth terrified him. How could he explain to a 5-year-old that the woman she met in the square was her biological mother? Sitting in his office that Wednesday morning, Nathan twirled a pen between his fingers as he waited. The clock read almost 10 o'clock, the time he had arranged to meet Sophie. Grace knocked softly on the door. "Mr. Carter, Mrs. Miller has arrived." "Send her in, Grace. Thank you." Sophie entered the office with hesitant steps. She was more put together than last time, wearing simple jeans and a white blouse. Her blonde hair was in a side braid, and she seemed to have made an effort to look presentable. "Good morning," she said, her voice low. "Thank you for seeing me." Nathan gestured to the chair in front of him. "Please, have a seat." Sophie complied, keeping her hands still in her lap. An uncomfortable silence hung between them until Nathan finally spoke. "I've thought a lot about our situation, about what to do from now on." Sophie nodded, saying nothing, waiting. "I'm not going to tell Chloe yet," he continued. "She's too young to understand something so complicated. It could be confusing and even traumatic for her." "I agree," Sophie replied quickly. "I never wanted to cause confusion in her life." Nathan studied the woman's face. He saw no malice there, only pain and resignation. But I also don't think it's fair to simply push you away from her forever, he said, surprising himself with the words. You're a part of her story, whether we like it or not. Sophie looked up, confused. What are you suggesting? Nathan took a deep breath. The idea had come to him during a sleepless night, and the more he thought about it, the more sense it made. I need someone to help with the cleaning around the house. Grace already has her hands full looking after Chloe and the kitchen. Sophie blinked a few times, processing what she was hearing. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering an opportunity, Nathan corrected. A chance for you to get to know your daughter gradually, to be a part of her life in some way. But with very clear conditions. Sophie straightened in her chair, suddenly alert. What conditions? First and most important, you cannot, under any circumstances, reveal to Chloe who you really are. At least, not until I decide it's the right time. I understand. Second, we will maintain a strictly professional relationship in front of her. No private conversations or anything that might raise suspicion. Sophie nodded, absorbing every word. Third, if I sense that your presence is causing any kind of confusion or discomfort for Chloe, we will have to end this arrangement immediately. That's fair, Sophie agreed. Nathan stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden where Chloe often played. When he turned back, his gaze was intense. Do you understand what I'm proposing? You'll have to see your daughter every day, interact with her, but never be able to tell her the truth. Never be able to hug her like a mother. Can you handle that? Sophie's eyes filled with tears, but she held them back. Seeing her up close, even without being able to say who I am, here's already so much more than I ever hoped for. She took a deep breath. I accept your conditions, Mr. Carter. All of them. Nathan, he corrected. You can call me Nathan, but only when we're alone. Sophie nodded. When do I start? Tomorrow, 8 in the morning. Grace will explain your duties and show you the house. Sophie stood up, her hands slightly trembling. Thank you so much. I promise you won't regret this. I hope not, Nathan replied, still unsure if he was making the right decision. As he walked her to the door, he wondered if he was making the biggest mistake of his life or taking the first step toward fixing a broken story. The next day, Sophie arrived promptly at 8. Grace greeted her and showed her tasks, cleaning the common areas, doing laundry, organizing closets. The house was enormous, with 12 bedrooms and several living rooms, which meant more than enough work. Chloe usually has lessons with her private tutor in the morning and plays in the afternoon, Grace explained, as she showed her the utility room where Sophie would store her supplies. She's a lovely child, but very curious. She'll want to know all about you. Sophie felt her heart race at the prospect of formally meeting her daughter. I understand. I'll try to be normal. Grace smiled sympathetically. Nathan had told her about the situation, and she seemed understanding. Just be kind to her. The rest will happen naturally. The first meeting happened just before lunch. Sophie was cleaning the main staircase railing when she heard a cheerful little voice. Hello, are you new here? Sophie turned and saw Chloe standing at the top of the stairs, holding a colorful book. She was wearing a light blue dress that highlighted her eyes, and her blonde hair was in 2 small braids. Sophie felt her heart ache. It was like looking at a miniature version of herself. Hi, Sophie replied, trying to control the tremor in her voice. Yes, I started today. My name is Sophie. Chloe's eyes widened. Sophie? Like the lady from the square? Sophie smiled, surprised she remembered. Exactly. That's me. But you didn't have a home, Chloe said, confused, coming down a few steps. I was going through a difficult time, Sophie explained carefully. Your father offered me a job, and now I'm living in a better place. Chloe came down a few more steps, curious. My dad is really nice, isn't he? He always helps everyone. Yes, he seems to be a very good person. Sophie felt a wave of gratitude for Nathan. He was truly an extraordinary man, taking such good care of the daughter she had to give up. What are you reading? Sophie asked, trying to keep the conversation normal. Chloe held up the book. It's about a princess who saves a dragon. It's not the dragon who saves the princess. It's the other way around. It's really cool. That does sound very cool, Sophie smiled. You like different kinds of stories, then? I like stories where girls do important things, Chloe declared, coming down the last few steps. Now she was very close to Sophie, looking at her with curiosity. Did you know your eyes are the same color as mine? Sophie felt her heart leap. Really, I hadn't noticed. They are, light blue. Daddy says my eyes look like the summer sky. Your daddy is right, Sophie replied, struggling to keep her voice steady. You have very beautiful eyes. Chloe, Grace's voice came from the kitchen. Shall I have time to wash your hands for lunch? Coming, Chloe shouted back. She looked at Sophie one last time. Are you having lunch with us? No, sweetie. I eat in the kitchen with Grace. Oh, Chloe seemed slightly disappointed. See you later then, Sophie. See you later, Chloe. When the girl walked away, Sophie allowed herself to breathe again. Her heart was beating so fast, she feared someone might hear it. It was surreal to be there talking to her own daughter, who had no idea who she really was. The first few weeks were the hardest. Sophie constantly had to remind herself to keep her distance, not to show too much emotion, not to stare at the girl for too long. Every smile from Chloe, every word, every childish gesture was like a small pinprick to her heart, painful and wonderful at the same time. Nathan watched everything from a distance, ever vigilant. Sophie knew he was evaluating every interaction, ready to end the agreement at the first sign of trouble. But as the days went by, he seemed to relax a little. One morning, while Sophie was making Chloe's bed, the girl ran into the room holding a drawing. Sophie, look what I made in class. It was a colorful drawing of a house with a garden full of flowers. Sophie smiled genuinely. How beautiful, Chloe. You draw very well. This is our house, Chloe explained, pointing. And these are the flowers I want to plant in the garden. Can we really plant them one day? Sophie looked at her, surprised by the invitation. If your dad lets us, I would love to help you plant flowers. He'll let us, Chloe assured her confidently. I'll ask him to buy the seeds. In the following days, Chloe began to seek Sophie out around the house, always with some news to share or a question to ask. Sophie tried to maintain a professional distance, but it was impossible not to get involved. The girl had a way of breaking down all her defenses. On a particularly busy afternoon, Sophie was cleaning the playroom when Chloe ran in. Sophie, look what I got from my teacher. She held out a small, colorful certificate. It's because I learned all the letters and numbers. Sophie looked at the paper with a genuine smile. That's amazing, Chloe. You must be very smart. Daddy said we're going to celebrate with ice cream after dinner, Chloe said excitedly. Then she looked around at the mess of scattered toys. Oops, I should have put this away before I left. It's okay, I can clean it up. No, Chloe protested. Daddy always says we should be responsible for our things. I'll help you. Sophie smiled, crouching down beside the girl. We can do it together then. As they put away dolls, blocks, and colorful books, Sophie felt a simple, pure happiness. It was a common, everyday moment. But for her, it was precious, a small piece of the life she never had with her daughter. You're very organized, Sophie commented, watching how Chloe stacked the blocks by size. I like things in the right place, Chloe replied, with adult-like seriousness. It's easier to find them later. Sophie laughed softly. You're absolutely right. Chloe stopped what she was doing and looked at Sophie with curiosity. Do you have kids, Sophie? The question caught Sophie off guard. She felt as if all the air had been sucked from her lungs. No, she finally replied. I don't have any children. But you'd be a good mom, Chloe declared, with the unshakable certainty of children. You're patient and you explain things well. Sophie swallowed the lump that formed in her throat. Thank you, Chloe. That's very kind of you. That night, alone in her small apartment, which she had managed to rent thanks to the salary Nathan paid her, Sophie cried herself to sleep. Chloe's innocent words echoed in her mind. You'd be a good mom. If only she knew. As the weeks turned into months, Sophie became a constant presence in Chloe's life. The girl began to seek her out naturally, sharing stories from school, showing her drawings, asking for help with small tasks. One afternoon, Chloe found Sophie folding clothes in the laundry room. Sophie, do Do you know how to do braids? Sophie smiled. I do. Why? I want to learn how to do them like yours, can I? Of course. Come here. Sophie got a small mirror and showed Chloe how to weave the strands of hair. The girl tried several times, her tongue stuck between her teeth in concentration. It's harder than it looks, Chloe complained after another failed attempt. It takes time to learn, Sophie assured her. It took me a while too. Can you do one on me? So I can see how it looks. Sophie hesitated for a second but nodded. Carefully, she combed Chloe's blonde hair and began to braid. Her fingers trembled slightly as she touched the silky strands, so similar to her own. There, she said after a few minutes. Look in the mirror. Chloe looked and smiled radiantly. It looks just like yours. Then I'm going to show Daddy. And she ran off before Sophie could say anything. Nathan observed this growing closeness with conflicting feelings. On one hand, he was happy to see Chloe getting along so well with Sophie. On the other, he felt an irrational fear that the girl might drift away from him. One afternoon, while working in his office, he heard laughter coming from the garden. From the window, he saw Sophie and Chloe planting flowers in small, colorful pots. His daughter's face was lit up with a huge smile as Sophie showed her how to gently press the soil around the seedlings. She's good with Chloe, Grace commented, coming in with a cup of coffee. Nathan nodded, not taking his eyes off the scene. They've been getting along well? Chloe talks about her all the time. Grace placed the cup on the table. Just yesterday, she said, Sophie taught me how to do a braid just like hers. Doesn't it look pretty? Nathan smiled slightly. It was hard not to notice how happy Chloe had been lately. But do you think I did the right thing, Grace? Bringing Sophie here? Grace considered the question for a moment. I think so. Chloe deserves to know her mother, even if she doesn't know who she really is yet. And Sophie seems genuinely concerned for her well-being. Nathan sighed. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm complicating everything. What if Chloe gets hurt when she finds out the truth? What if she feels betrayed by both of us? Children are more understanding than we imagine, Grace replied wisely, especially when they feel they are loved. That evening, after dinner, Nathan found Chloe in the TV room, drawing while waiting for her favorite show to start. Say, what are you drawing, Laventour, Princess? Chloe proudly showed him the paper. 3 stick figures stood side by side, holding hands, one big, one medium, and one small. It's you, me, and Sophie, she explained, pointing to each figure, in the garden planting the flowers. Nathan felt something strange in his chest seeing that simple drawing. It was as if Sophie was already part of the family in some way. You like Sophie, don't you? He asked casually. Chloe nodded enthusiastically. She helps me put away my toys. She's different. I like her. Different how? Chloe seemed to think hard about the question. Her forehead wrinkled in concentration. She really listens to me, you know. And she doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby. The girl went back to coloring her drawing. And sometimes she looks at me in a way like I'm the most important thing in the whole world. Nathan swallowed hard. Sophie looked at Chloe exactly the way a mother would look, with unconditional love, with admiration, with that unique mixture of pride and tenderness that only exists between mothers and children. It was impossible to completely hide such a deep feeling. That's good, he managed to say. Dad's good to have people who make us feel important. Can I ask Sophie to have dinner with us one day? Chloe asked suddenly. The question took Nathan by surprise. Why do you want that? Because she always eats alone in the kitchen. It must be boring. Nathan smiled at his daughter's concern. We'll see, Princess. Maybe on a special day. Later, when Chloe was already asleep, Nathan found Sophie finishing up organizing the laundry room. Chloe told me she likes you, he commented, leaning against the doorframe. Sophie smiled, a light blush coloring her cheeks. She's a wonderful child, so smart and kind. She really is, Nathan agreed. After a pause, he added, You've been doing well, Sophie. Better than I expected, to be honest. I'm trying to follow all your rules, she replied quickly. I would never do anything to harm Chloe or confuse her. I know, Nathan studied her for a moment. It must be hard for you. Being so close to her every day and not being able to... It is hard, Sophie admitted, folding a towel with excessive care. but it's also the greatest gift I could ever receive, to be able to watch her grow, hear her stories, be part of her life, even from a distance. It's more than I ever dreamed of having." Her blue eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but she was smiling. It was a smile full of gratitude and acceptance. "Thank you for this opportunity, Nathan. I know I don't deserve it, but I promise I will never waste it." He nodded slightly. "Chloe asked for you to have dinner with us one of these days." Sophie looked at him, surprised. "And what did you say?" "That may be on a special day," Nathan shrugged. "I don't think it would hurt, eventually." "That would be wonderful," Sophie replied, trying to contain the emotion in her voice. "Good night, Sophie. Good night, Nathan." As he walked back to his room, Nathan realized that something was changing inside him. The initial fear and distrust were slowly giving way to a new feeling, a reluctant respect for the woman who had given up her own daughter to give her a better life. Sophie was not who he had imagined. She wasn't an opportunist or someone who abandoned her child out of pure selfishness. She was a woman who did what she believed was best for her daughter, even if it meant never seeing her again. And now, watching how Chloe naturally gravitated towards Sophie, Nathan began to wonder if fate hadn't been right after all. Maybe this really was a chance for everyone to build something new, a different kind of family, but a family nonetheless. Sophie, for her part, treasured every moment with Chloe like a precious gem, every smile, every word, every small accidental touch. Her heart warmed with the simple fact of being able to be near her daughter, even if she could never reveal the truth. For now it was enough. For now she was content to be just Sophie, the lady who helps around the house in Chloe's eyes, because deep down, in her heart, she was so much more. And maybe one day, Chloe would know that too. Summer had arrived in full force in Chicago. The garden of the Carter mansion was covered in colorful flowers that Chloe and Sophie had planted together months ago. The red roses, yellow daisies, and purple violets formed a living carpet that made Chloe skip with joy every time she went out to play. On that Saturday afternoon, the sky was clear and the heat was pleasant. Nathan watched from the porch as Sophie helped Chloe water the plants. In the last 2 months, the relationship between the two had become increasingly close, something that left him with mixed feelings. On one hand, he was happy to see Chloe so content. On the other, he knew the truth would have to be revealed at some point. "Daddy, come see," Chloe shouted excitedly, pointing to a blue butterfly that had landed on one of the flowers. "I've never seen a blue one like this." Nathan smiled and approached. "It's a blue morpho. They're rare around here." "It's the most beautiful color in the world," Chloe declared, looking fascinated at the small insect. Sophie, who was crouched near a flower bed, smiled at the girl's enthusiasm. Chloe was always enchanted by the small wonders of nature. "Want to do something fun?" Sophie suggested, setting aside the watering can. "How about we play hide and seek here in the garden?" Chloe's eyes lit up. "Yes, Daddy, will you play too?" Nathan checked his watch. He had a video call in 30 minutes, but he couldn't resist that hopeful look. "Just for a little bit, Princess. I have a meeting later." "I'll count," Chloe announced, covering her eyes with her hands. 1, 2, 3. Nathan and Sophie exchanged a quick glance before running to hide. He chose a spot behind a large tree, while Sophie ducked behind some flowering bushes. 1920, ready or not, here I come. Chloe started searching, looking in every corner of the garden. She found Nathan first, who feigned surprise when she discovered him. "Found Daddy?" she shouted, laughing. "Now for Sophie." Nathan watched as Chloe searched for the hidden woman. The girl approached the bushes, looking intently. "Found you!" she shouted suddenly, pointing to the blonde hair peeking through the leaves. Sophie emerged from her hiding spot, feigning disappointment. "Oh no, you're too good at this game." Chloe jumped for joy. Now it's your turn to count, Daddy." Nathan nodded and positioned himself near the house, covering his eyes. 1, 2, 3. Sophie and Chloe ran to hide. The girl pulled the woman's hand, leading her behind a marble statue. "Here, Sophie. He'll never find us." The two of them crouched down, trying to control their laughter. Chloe pressed against Sophie, who wrapped an arm around the girl's small shoulders. "Shh," Sophie whispered. "We need to be very quiet." They heard Nathan finish counting and start searching. Chloe squeezed Sophie's hand, excited about the game. "I think he's going the other way," Chloe murmured, peeking through a gap. Sophie smiled, her heart full of joy. Being there, hidden with her daughter, living this moment so simple and yet so precious, was more than she had ever dreamed of. "Well done, my daughter," Sophie whispered, proud of Chloe's hiding strategy. "He'll never find us here." The words slipped out naturally, without her realizing. It was only when she felt Chloe stiffen beside her that Sophie realized what she had said. "My daughter." Chloe's face turned to her, her blue eyes wide with confusion. "What did you say?" Sophie felt her blood run cold. I said he'll never find us here." "No, before that," Chloe frowned. "You called me my daughter." Panic grew in Sophie's chest. How could she have been so careless? She had kept the secret for months, following all of Nathan's rules, and now a simple slip-up could ruin everything. I just... Sophie stammered, not knowing what to say. "Found you," Nathan exclaimed, suddenly appearing from behind the statue. The relief on Sophie's face was evident. Chloe, however, continued to look at her with a strange expression, as if she were trying to understand something complicated. "You two are terrible at hiding your giggles," Nathan joked, not noticing the tension between them. "I could hear you from the other side of the garden." "Daddy," Chloe said, still looking at Sophie. "So now it's my turn to count. Sorry, Princess, but it's time for my meeting," Nathan replied, checking his watch. "Can we continue later?" Chloe nodded, but her enthusiasm had faded. Sophie avoided looking directly at her, pretending to brush some leaves off her clothes. "I'm heading in then," Nathan said. "How behave you two?" As he walked back to the house, an uncomfortable silence settled between Sophie and Chloe. The girl fidgeted with the hem of her dress, still thoughtful. "Want to keep watering the flowers?" Sophie suggested, trying to resume normality. "Why did you call me my daughter?" Chloe asked directly, with the typical honesty of children. Sophie swallowed hard. "Sometimes people call children that, like a term of endearment, like how your dad calls you princess." Chloe didn't seem convinced. "But you've never called me that before." "I guess it was an accident." Sophie tried to smile. "It doesn't mean anything special, but for a 5-year-old, words sometimes carry a much greater weight than we imagine." Chloe continued to look at Sophie with curiosity, as if she were trying to solve a puzzle. "Shall we finish watering the flowers?" Sophie tried again, extending a hand to the girl. After a moment of hesitation, Chloe took her hand and returned to her garden activities. But something had changed. The seed of doubt had been planted, and Sophie knew she had made a mistake that could not be easily erased. For the rest of the afternoon, Chloe was quieter than usual. At dinner, she barely touched her food, listlessly pushing her fork around her plate. "Everything okay, Princess?" Nathan asked, noticing his daughter's unusual behavior. "I'm sleepy," Chloe replied, without looking up. Nathan exchanged a quick glance with Grace, who shrugged, also confused. "Want to go to bed early tonight?" Chloe nodded. "Can I bring Mr. Teddy to your room later? I want to talk to you about something." "Of course you can," Nathan smiled, though he felt a slight concern. "I'll finish up some emails and wait for you there." An hour later, Nathan was in his room reviewing some documents when he heard a soft knock on the door. Chloe entered holding her teddy bear, dressed in her star pajamas. "Hi, Princess." "Come here." She climbed onto the bed and sat beside him, hugging the bear to her chest. She seemed to be gathering the courage to say something important. "What is it?" Nathan asked gently. "You seem worried." Chloe fiddled with Mr. Teddy's ears for a few seconds before finally speaking. "Why did Sophie call me her daughter?" The question hit Nathan like a punch to the stomach. He felt the air leave his lungs as his brain processed what he had just heard. Sophie had broken the most important rule. "When did this happen?" he asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "Today, when we were playing hide-and-seek." Chloe looked directly at him. She said, "Well done, my daughter." It was weird. Nathan took a deep breath. This moment, which he had dreaded so much, and for which he never felt truly prepared, had arrived. He had to make a quick decision, make up an excuse, or tell the truth. Looking at his daughter's innocent and trusting face, He knew he couldn't lie, not about something so important. "Chloe," he began, choosing his words carefully. "Remember when we talked about different kinds of families, how some children have two dads, others have two mums, some live with their grandparents?" Chloe nodded. "Like Lucy from my school who has two mommies." "Exactly." Nathan took her small hands in his. "Well, you also have a special kind of family, a family that started in a different way." The girl frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Nathan felt his heart race. There was no easy way to say this. "You were left on our doorstep when you were a very tiny baby." He spoke in a soft voice. "I raised you with all my love. But that woman, Sophie, is your biological mother." Chloe's eyes widened in shock. She looked at her father as if she couldn't comprehend what she was hearing. "My mother?" The words came out almost in a whisper. "Yes. She is the person who brought you into the world." Chloe let go of the teddy bear, which fell silently onto the mattress. Her blue eyes began to fill with tears. But why did she never tell me?" "Because we asked her not to. We thought you were too young to understand." The first tears began to stream down the girl's face. Nathan felt his heart break seeing the confusion and sadness in his daughter's eyes. "So, Sophie is my real mum?" Chloe asked, her voice choked with emotion. "She gave birth to you?" "Yes." Nathan stroked his daughter's hair. "But I am your real dad. Family isn't just about who has the same blood, princess. It's about who loves, who cares, who is always there." Chloe sniffled, trying to process all this new and complex information. Why did she leave me? The question came out as a painful sob that hit Nathan hard. He pulled Chloe closer, hugging her tightly. "Because she couldn't take care of you, and she wanted to give you a chance," he answered, his voice firm and sweet. "She loved you so much that she preferred to leave you with someone who could give you a better life." Chloe cried against her father's chest, her small shoulders shaking with sobs. Nathan held her in silence, letting her process her emotions. He knew that no words could completely alleviate the confusion and pain his daughter was feeling. "So," Chloe finally spoke, lifting her tear-streaked face. "Sophie came back to see me." "Yes. She saw you that night in the square, remember? When you brought her soup." A flash of recognition passed through Chloe's eyes. "Is that why she cried when I talked to her?" "Exactly." Nathan gently wiped the tears from his daughter's face. "She was very moved to see you after so long, and that's why she came to work here, to be close to me." "Yes, princess." Chloe was silent for a long moment, absorbing everything. When she spoke again, her voice was small and insecure. "You're still my dad, right?" Nathan's heart clenched at the question. "I will always be your dad, Chloe. Nothing in the world can change that. From the moment I found you, you were and always will be my daughter." Chloe snuggled into his arms, seeming a little calmer, though still confused. "I'm mad at you guys for not telling me," she murmured against his chest. "I know, princess, and you have every right to be. We just wanted to protect you." "Is Sophie going to leave now?" Nathan hesitated. He hadn't thought about that yet. Sophie's slip-up had precipitated everything, but he couldn't deny that Chloe had grown attached to her. "What do you want to happen?" he asked, deciding that his daughter's opinion was the most important thing now. Chloe took a while to answer, clearly torn by conflicting feelings. "I don't know," she said finally. "I'm confused." "It's okay to be confused," Nathan assured her. "We don't have to decide anything right now. We can talk more tomorrow, after you've rested a bit." Chloe nodded, emotionally exhausted. Nathan rocked her in his arms until she fell asleep, tears still wet on her cheeks. Careful not to wake her, he carried her to her own room and placed her in bed. He watched her for a few minutes, his heart heavy with the thought that his life would never be the same again. The truth had been revealed. What would come next? He didn't know. But one thing was certain. He would do anything to protect Chloe, even if it meant giving up his own comfort or facing difficult changes. The conversation with Sophie would have to wait until tomorrow. For now, he needed to be there for his daughter, helping her navigate this new world where the truths she knew had been shaken. And meanwhile, in her small apartment on the other side of the city, Sophie cried alone, fearing she had destroyed everything with a single moment of carelessness, a slip-up full of love, but one that might have cost her the only thing that mattered to her, the chance to be a part of her daughter's life. 3 days passed since the revelation. The Carter mansion, once so full of laughter and lively conversation, now seemed shrouded in a heavy, uncomfortable silence. Chloe barely left her room, except for meals, and when she did, her usually bright eyes seemed clouded with confusion. Sophie continued with her daily tasks, but her every move seemed heavier, every gesture more painful. Nathan had spoken with her briefly the morning after the incident, explaining that Chloe now knew the truth. There were no accusations, just the realization that everything had changed. "She needs time," Nathan had said. "It's a lot for a 5-year-old to process." Sophie had nodded, accepting the situation with a silent dignity that Nathan couldn't help but admire. On the morning of the 4th day, Sophie was cleaning the hallway when she saw Chloe coming out of her room. The girl froze upon seeing her, like a frightened little animal ready to flee. The blue eyes, so similar to her own, met Sophie's for a brief moment, before darting to the floor. "Good morning, Chloe," Sophie said softly. Chloe didn't answer. She just clutched Mr. Teddy to her chest and ran in the opposite direction, quickly descending the stairs. Sophie stood still, the cleaning cloth hanging limply in her hand, as she felt a sharp pain in her chest. She had imagined many scenarios for when Chloe found out the truth, but nothing prepared her for this. The silence of the rejection, the fear in her own daughter's eyes. That afternoon, Sophie tried again. She found Chloe sitting alone in the TV room, flipping through a picture book without really paying attention. "Hi," Sophie said from the doorway. "May I come in?" Chloe looked up briefly and shrugged, neither a yes nor a no. Sophie entered hesitantly and sat at a respectful distance. "Are you reading a nice story?" Silence. Chloe turned the page with more force than necessary. "Chloe, Sophie began, her voice failing. "I know you must be confused and upset, and it's okay if you don't want to talk to me right now." More silence, but Sophie noticed that Chloe had stopped turning the pages. "I just wanted you to know that everything we experienced together these last few months was real. Every game, every conversation, every moment in the garden. None of it was a lie." Chloe finally looked at her, her blue eyes filled with a sadness no child should feel. "You left me," she said, the simple words carrying the weight of the world. Sophie felt tears burn in her eyes. "Yes, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life." "Why?" Chloe's voice was almost a whisper. "Because I loved you too much to condemn you to the life I had," Sophie replied, struggling to keep her voice steady. "So I had no home, no money, no way to take care of you the way you deserved. You could have stayed with me anyway." The simplicity of childish logic was devastating. Sophie swallowed hard, unable to explain the full complexity of poverty, desperation, and fear. "I wanted the best for you, and I knew that wasn't me." Chloe closed the book and stood up. "In fact, my dad said it's snack time," she declared, leaving the room without looking back. In the following days, the pattern repeated. Whenever Sophie approached, Chloe found an excuse to leave. When they had to be in the same room, the girl remained silent, responding only with minimal gestures. The garden, once a place of shared joy, now remained empty. Chloe refused to go there. A week after the revelation, Sophie found Chloe playing with dolls in the playroom. She stopped at the door, watching for a moment before entering. "Those dolls are very pretty," she commented. "Now we can play together if you want." Chloe looked at her, then at the dolls, and began to silently put them away in a box. "You don't have to stop playing because of me," Sophie said, her heart aching. "I don't feel like playing anymore," Chloe replied, closing the box with unnecessary force. "Chloe, please, I want to be alone." The firmness in the child's voice caught Sophie by surprise. She nodded slowly and left the room, the tears finally escaping once she was away from her daughter's eyes. That night, alone in her small apartment, Sophie made a painful decision. Her presence was hurting Chloe, the one person she never wanted to hurt. Every attempt at connection seemed only to increase the girl's confusion and sadness. The best thing to do was to leave again. The next morning, Sophie arrived earlier than usual at the Carter mansion. She knew Nathan would be in his office checking emails, as he did every morning, and that Chloe would still be asleep. It was the perfect time. She walked silently to the office and knocked on the door. "Come in," Nathan's voice sounded from the other side. When she entered, he looked up from his computer screen, surprised by the early visit. "Sophie, did something happen?" "I came to say goodbye," she said simply. Nathan frowned, confused. "What do you mean? I'm leaving." Sophie took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. "My presence is hurting Chloe. She needs time and space to process all of this, and she can't do that with me around. Sophie, it doesn't have to be this way. She's just confused. With time—" "No," Sophie interrupted gently. "I know when I'm causing more pain than good. I've been through this once before, when I left her on your doorstep. I know what it's like to make the hardest decision out of love." Nathan was silent, observing Sophie's determined face. There was a serene dignity in her suffering that moved him. "Where will you go?" "I have a friend in Milwaukee who can put me up for a while. I got a job at a diner there." Sophie smiled faintly. "I'll be fine, don't worry. Chloe will miss you, even if she doesn't show it now. Maybe one day when she's ready, if she wants to see me again." Sophie left the sentence hanging. "You will always be welcome here," Nathan assured her. "This is still the home of Chloe's mother." Sophie nodded, moved by his words. She took an envelope from her pocket and handed it to Nathan. "Could you give this to her when you think it's appropriate? It doesn't have to be now." "Of course." Sophie hesitated for a moment, as if wanting to say something more, but just smiled sadly. "Thank you for everything, Nathan. For taking such good care of her, for giving me the chance to know her. I will never forget the time we spent together." She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "There's another envelope in the kitchen. It's for you." Before Nathan could respond, she left quickly, her light footsteps fading down the hall. Grace found Nathan still in his office an hour later, with Sophie's opened envelope on the desk. "Mr. Carter, Sophie didn't show up today. Is she sick?" "She's gone, Grace." "What do you mean, gone?" Nathan handed the letter to Grace, who read it in silence. Sophie's handwriting was delicate and precise. "Nathan, thank you for letting me get to know my daughter. These past months have been the happiest of my life, even with all the limitations and rules. Being able to watch Chloe grow, listen to her stories, help her in the garden. These are gifts I will cherish forever. I understand that my presence is now causing confusion and pain. I don't want that for her. I never did. That's why I've decided to leave once more. It's the hardest decision, but I know it's the right one. Tell her that I love her more than anything in this world, that every minute away from her these past 5 years has been a small daily death, that not a day has gone by that I haven't thought of her and wished for her to be happy and safe. Take good care of her, as you always have. She is lucky to have you as her father. With gratitude, Sophie." Grace handed the letter back, her eyes misty. "That poor woman." Nathan folded the paper carefully and put it in his drawer. She did what she thought was best for Chloe, again. That afternoon, Chloe came into the kitchen looking for a snack and noticed Sophie's absence. "Where's Sophie?" she asked Grace, who was preparing dinner. She had to travel, sweetie." "Is she coming back?" Grace looked at Chloe, unsure of what to say. "I think that's something you should talk to your father about." Later, after dinner, Nathan found Chloe sitting on the porch, looking at the garden she had cultivated with Sophie. He sat beside her in silence. "Did Sophie leave because of me?" Chloe finally asked, her voice small in the quiet of the evening. "She left because she loves you very much," Nathan answered carefully. "She thought she was making you sad and confused." "Is she not coming back?" "I don't know, Princess. It depends on a lot of things." Nathan put his arm around her shoulders. "She left a letter for you. Do you want to read it now, or would you rather wait?" "Now," Chloe replied, holding out her hand. Nathan took the envelope from his pocket and handed it to her. Chloe opened it carefully, pulling out a sheet of colored paper. Inside was a small drawing of 3 people holding hands, 2 big and 1 small, alongside a simple text that Nathan helped her read. "Dearest Chloe, even when you can't see me, know that I am thinking of you." The flowers we planted together will keep growing, just like you. Be happy, be brave, be yourself. The amazing girl I met and have loved since the very first day. With love, Sophie. Chloe looked at the drawing for a long time. Then she looked up at her father, a silent question hanging between them. Did she love me? Chloe's voice was almost a whisper. Nathan pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. More than anything, he replied in a firm voice, and that's why she left you. So you could have what she could never give you. Chloe nodded slowly, folding the letter carefully. It still makes me sad, she admitted. It's normal to be sad, princess. Sometimes the most important things in life are also the hardest to understand. They sat side by side, watching the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. Nathan could feel that something had changed in his daughter. The initial anger was giving way to a quiet understanding, still incomplete, still confused, but real. Can we go see her one day? Chloe asked after a long silence. Nathan smiled faintly. If you want to, when you're ready, we can try to find her. Chloe nodded, looking back at the garden where so many memories had been built. The sadness was still there, visible in her eyes, but now mixed with something new, a glimmer of understanding, a seed of acceptance that, with time and care, could blossom into forgiveness. And somewhere, in a city not so far away, Sophie looked at the same crescent moon, holding in her heart every moment she spent with the daughter she loved more than life itself. 2 weeks passed since Sophie's departure. Chloe returned to her normal activities, school, playing, drawing, but there was a quietness about her that worried Nathan. Sometimes, he would find her looking at the garden with a pensive expression that seemed too adult for a 5-year-old. One afternoon, while putting away clothes in Chloe's closet, Nathan found the drawing Sophie had left in the letter. It was carefully tucked between the pages of a storybook. The image of the 3 figures holding hands, 2 large and 1 small, made him pause for a moment. Thoughtful. That night, after putting Chloe to bed, he made a decision. Maybe it was time to fix what was broken. Princess, Nathan said at breakfast the next day, what do you think about taking a trip today? Chloe looked up from her cereal. Where? Remember that square where we delivered soup in the winter? I thought we could go there. Chloe's eyes lit up with understanding. She was small, but smart enough to understand what that suggestion meant. Will Sophie be there? She asked directly. I don't know, Nathan answered honestly. But we can try to find out. Chloe was silent for a moment, stirring her cereal with her spoon. Okay, she said finally. I want to go. The drive downtown was quiet. Chloe looked out the window, hugging Mr. Teddy, whom she now rarely left at home. Nathan watched her in the rearview mirror, trying to decipher the thoughts passing behind those blue eyes so much like Sophie's. What will you say if we find her? He asked gently. Chloe shrugged. I don't know. Are you angry with her? No, Chloe replied after a moment's thought. I'm just sad. It's normal to be sad, princess. Nathan parked the car near the square. Sometimes the people we love the most are the ones who confuse us the most. They walked slowly through the square, looking around. It was a sunny autumn day, with golden leaves falling from the trees. Some people were strolling peacefully. Others sat on benches reading or talking. Do you think she still comes here? Chloe asked, holding her father's hand tightly. I hope so, Nathan replied. Let's take another look around. They continued walking, and as they were about to complete a lap of the square, Chloe stopped abruptly. Daddy, look. Nathan followed her gaze and saw Sophie sitting on a distant bench, almost the same one where they first found her. She was wearing a simple coat and had her hair in the same messy ponytail. She was reading a book, completely unaware of their presence. That's her, Nathan confirmed. Do you want to go talk to her? Chloe hesitated, suddenly unsure. Kaske, what if she doesn't want to talk to me? What if she's mad because I was mad? Nathan knelt to be at his daughter's eye level. Sophie would never be mad at you for feeling what you felt. She understands that you needed time. Are you sure? Absolutely. Chloe took a deep breath, as if mustering all her courage. Okay, let's go. They approached slowly. Sophie was so engrossed in her reading that she only noticed them when they were a few steps away. When she looked up and saw them, the book nearly fell from her hands. "Chloe." Her voice was just a whisper. "Nathan." "Hi, Sophie," Nathan said softly. Chloe stood still, clutching Mr. Teddy to her chest, looking at Sophie with a mix of emotions on her little face. "Can I sit?" she asked shyly. "Of course you can," Sophie replied, moving over a little to make room. Chloe climbed onto the bench and sat next to Sophie, still holding the bear tightly. For a moment, no one said anything. The wind rustled the leaves in the trees, creating a soft background noise. "Are you okay?" Chloe finally asked. Sophie smiled, her eyes already shining with unshed tears. "I am, and you?" Sort of." Chloe fiddled with Mr. Teddy's ears. "I missed you." The simple, honest words were like an arrow straight to Sophie's heart. A tear escaped, rolling down her cheek. "I missed you so much too," she confessed. Chloe looked at her with those blue eyes so identical to her own. "Why did you leave again?" "Because I thought you needed space, that you were confused and sad because of me." "I was," Chloe admitted. "But then I got even sadder when you left." Sophie swallowed hard, unable to hold back more tears. "I'm sorry. I just wanted to do what was best for you." Chloe was silent for a moment, thoughtful. Then, to Nathan and Sophie's surprise, she held out Mr. Teddy. "Mr. Teddy missed you too," she said. "Do you want to give him a hug?" Sophie took the bear carefully, as if it were the most precious object in the world. "Hi, Mr. Teddy. I missed you too." Chloe watched the interaction intently, then looked at her father, who gave an encouraging nod. Gathering all her courage, she turned to Sophie again, her eyes now shining with tears. "I'm sorry." Her voice was almost a whisper. "Do you want to come back to our house?" Sophie looked at Chloe, then at Nathan, uncertain. "She's serious," Nathan confirmed. "We missed you, both of us." Sophie set the book aside and opened her arms hesitantly. Chloe didn't hesitate. She threw herself into them immediately, burying her face in Sophie's shoulder, who held her tightly, without fear, without pretense. It was no longer the employee hugging the boss's daughter. It was a mother hugging her child. "I want to come back so much," Sophie whispered, her eyes closed as she savored the moment. More than anything in the world, Nathan watched the scene with a lump in his throat. There was something profoundly right about that hug, as if two pieces of a puzzle had finally clicked into place after a long time apart. Sophie's return to the Carter mansion was different this time. She didn't come back as an employee, but as a guest, as part of the family. Nathan had prepared one of the guest rooms for her, a space of her own for the first time. "It's not the servants' room anymore," he explained as he opened the door. "We thought you deserved something better." The room was spacious and airy, with a large window overlooking the garden. There were fresh flowers in a vase on the dresser, yellow daisies, Chloe's favorite. "I helped pick the flowers," Chloe said proudly. "And make the bed too." Sophie looked around, moved by the care they had taken to welcome her. "It's perfect, thank you." That night, for the first time, Sophie had dinner at the table with Nathan and Chloe. Not in the kitchen, not hidden away, but as a real part of the family. The conversation flowed naturally, with Chloe excitedly talking about her day at school and the drawings she had made. "I made one for you," she told Sophie as she ate. "It's in my room." "I can't wait to see it," Sophie smiled. After dinner, Chloe asked Sophie to help her with her bath and getting ready for bed, a routine that was previously exclusive to Grace or Nathan. "Do you know how to tell stories?" Chloe asked as Sophie helped her put on her pajamas. "A few key," Sophie replied. "What kind of stories do you like?" "With princesses who save dragons," Sophie laughed. "I think I can make one of those up." When Nathan passed by Chloe's room later, he found the two of them cuddled up in bed, Sophie telling an elaborate story about a brave princess who rescued a dragon trapped in a cave. Chloe listened with wide-eyed admiration. And then the princess said to the dragon, "Don't be afraid. Sometimes we have to be brave even when we're scared." Nathan leaned against the doorframe, watching the scene with a smile. There was something profoundly right about that image. Mother and daughter sharing a moment that should have happened years ago, but was finally getting its chance. The following days brought a new routine to the house. Sophie helped Chloe with her homework, joined them for meals, and shared moments she had once only imagined. It wasn't a perfect transition. There were moments of uncertainty, adjustments, and minor confusions, but there was also a growing sense of completeness. One sunny afternoon, about 2 weeks after Sophie's return, the three of them were in the garden. Nathan had taken the day off from work to spend time with them. Chloe ran among the flower beds, chasing butterflies, while Sophie and Nathan talked on a bench. "Thank you," Sophie said suddenly. "For this second chance, I know you didn't have to do this." Nathan looked at her seriously. "I did it for Chloe, but also for you, and maybe a little for myself." "For you?" "Seeing you two together," Nathan gestured toward Chloe, who was now focused on picking some flowers. "It's like a missing part of the story has finally been written." Sophie nodded, understanding perfectly. "Do you think it will work? This unconventional family we're trying to build?" "I don't know," Nathan answered honestly, "but I think it's worth a try." Just then, Chloe came running towards them, her face lit up with a radiant smile. "Daddy, look, Mommy Sophie taught me how to do the braid just like hers." The words came out naturally, without hesitation. Mommy Sophie. It was the first time Chloe had called her that, and the effect was immediate. Sophie froze, her eyes wide with surprise and emotion. Nathan smiled, proud. "It looks beautiful, princess, just like your mum's." Chloe twirled, showing off the perfect braid that swung down her back. "Now we're twins." She ran back into the garden, chasing a yellow butterfly flitting among the flowers. Sophie stood, watching the scene with silent tears streaming down her face. Nathan came closer and gently touched her shoulder. "Are you okay?" Sophie nodded, unable to speak for a moment. When she finally found her voice, it was choked with emotion. "For the first time in my life, I feel like I belong somewhere," she whispered. "That I have a real home." Nathan smiled, understanding the weight of those words. For someone who had spent her whole life feeling out of place, rootless, the simple fact of belonging was the greatest gift possible. Chloe ran back, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Look what I found. We can put them in your room, Mummy." "I'd love that," Sophie replied, crouching down to her daughter's level. "They're as beautiful as you are." Chloe smiled and, on an impulse, threw her arms around Sophie's neck. "I love you, Mommy." Sophie closed her eyes, savoring the words she never thought she'd hear. "I love you too, my daughter." More than anything in the world, Nathan watched the scene with a full heart. This wasn't the family he had imagined when he found a baby on his doorstep 5 years ago. It was something different, something unplanned, but just as precious. A family pieced back together by love, time, and the courage to face the truth. No fantasy. Just humanity, tenderness, and a new beginning. That night, as the stars began to dot the Chicago sky, the three of them